We are back on the record, but before we proceed, let me check. Ms. Kress, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And I see that Ms. Lowry, Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Bailey are also with us as well. And Ms. Downs, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ms. Downs, let's talk about the psychological evaluation. First, let me ask, how much time did you spend speaking with Dr. Guyton?
8 hours.
Oh, wow. And how did you feel about her report?
Well, I don't know. I guess I was disappointed.
Why were you disappointed?
I guess it confused me more than disappointed me. All through the report, she kept saying low risk, low risk, low risk. And then she would say, but I'm not safe, or something to that effect. I don't want to take her words out of context, but it confused me because she kept saying there's no evidence of threats, no evidence of violence, no evidence of anger. So not violence, not present, low risk. Anger out of control, not present, low risk. And then she goes on to say that I need to be under supervision when I get out of prison, psychiatric supervision. And I guess I just didn't understand.
Okay. I think she's saying that using a structured risk assessment methodology, because you have the one documented incident of violence, overall, she says your risk of violence is low, but there are still issues with you in regards to your personality that could make you a general risk to the community. Does that seem like a fair summary of the report?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, because you're looking up. I don't know if she's
I'm
on
sorry.
the screen up there.
So the camera's right here in front of me, but the screen is up and to the right. So if it looks like I'm looking away, it's because I'm trying to look at the screen, but also look at the camera.
Okay. Yes, I would say that that's a good thumbnail of what I read.
Okay, and so she did have some concerns about you, and I think how this will work is I will read to you some findings that she made, and then I'll ask to see if you agree with them or if you'd like to comment on them, okay?
Okay.
So she writes, overall, Ms. Downs presented as a glib, self-involved individual who told many stories that highlighted her importance and were unlikely to be true. Do you think there's any truth to that statement?
No. Well, if she perceived me to be glib, then that's her observation. I didn't tell stories that are unlikely to be true. I've addressed most of those in a letter. You referred to the letter. It's on file there. So I addressed all the concerns that I had with her report. Not all of them. Yeah, most of them. Yeah, in a letter that was for this board. I think it was on the 18th or the 23rd, something like that. It was a letter. I've got it here. But anyway, I addressed those in the report with you. I don't tell stories that aren't true. I try to only tell stories that I can prove with another document. Sometimes I can't because I didn't know that the subject was going to come up. I suppose in time, God forbid that there should be more time that that an attorney would have to go get those documents, then I suppose that's what would end up happening. At this point, I really hope it doesn't come to that because it just means more time. But no, I take exception to her saying that I make things up that are not true, that are unlikely to be true.
Okay. Can I ask you about, did you write a letter to the FBI recently?
Absolutely. Yes, I did.
Can you tell us what that was about?
In 1987, after my escape, somebody contacted me and said that they wanted me to sign a movie deal for Motown. I refused. That person then sent Robert Sieber to visit me in New Jersey. I refused. After that, somebody wrote to me from Germany. Eric Jacobson wrote to me from Germany, claimed to be a secret code breaker at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. I dismissed this person, not true. Michael Hart wrote to me, nutcase, dismissed this person, not true. Everybody who writes to me has an agenda. Everybody who writes to me says they have information that they don't give to the police. They give it to me. What am I supposed to do with it in prison? So I have continued to try to decipher and sift through this information with what limited resources, which is none, that I have in here. And all I can do is remember these things. In 2004, a woman moved into my cell named Julie Mayo. I received another letter from Michael Hart. Michael Hart sent a picture. I showed the girls in my cell. Julie Mayo says, "Oh, he's a wonderful looking man. I think you should write to him." It turns out that this man, Michael Hart, is her son, Frank. Frank was one of the people that wanted me to sign a movie contract for Motown in 1987. This is all information that comes in over the years, slowly rolling in. Years pass. All of a sudden, in 2010, the parole board, I received a threat that if the parole board paroled me, that they would be in trouble. He would make trouble for them if the parole board paroled me. I sent that letter, I gave that letter to the Investigative Services Unit and said, please let the parole board know I don't want them to be caught off guard. I don't want them to be in danger. I assume that they did send that to you, and if they did, not you, your predecessors. And if they didn't send to your predecessors, then maybe they also received a threat, because that was a very strange parole board hearing. They were in assistance. They were in attendance by the state police. And I mean literally right next to the table, so that when Miss Baker stood up, a hand reached into the camera, took her elbow, and leaned to lift her up. The person that leaned into the camera was a captain from the state police. I recognized him because he's the one who transported me from Salem here back in 1993. So they felt that they had been threatened. Maybe by the letter that I sent them that I had received, maybe a threat of their own. I don't know which it was. This is more information. For 10 years, I don't hear anything from this Michael Hart. Now, here we are on the eve of a parole board hearing, and all of a sudden Michael Hart pops up again and says he and I need to be friends, and remember when we used to write? No, we didn't used to write. Remember when we did this? No, we never did this. You're making this all up. And I know that you're Julie Mayo's son, and I know you're Frank from the Statesman's Journal newspaper that tried to get me to sign a movie contract that I didn't want to do. So basically you're stalking me. So I sent this information. It made me fear that if he's going to do all these crazy things to me, maybe he was the one that threatened the parole board. So I sent that information with his color pictures, because he sent a bunch of pictures. I sent them to the FBI and said, is this the man that was threatening the parole board in 2010? Because this is the man that's been stalking me since 87. And if he's been stalking me nonstop since 1987, to the point that he put his daughter up to pretending to be my child when she's not, then is it possible, can you, through different measures, find out if he was involved in the shooting back in 83? That was the letter I sent to the parole board and sent you a copy.
In your letter to the FBI, did you question whether you were the daughter of King Michael of Romania?
I questioned because somebody has said it, and I don't know. My dad, in 2008, my dad said I was adopted. That opens the door to any possibility. I don't know who my biological parents are. So when someone says, this is your father, he has 5 other daughters. So somebody's his daughter. So clearly the man, anything is conceivable. I don't know why I would. I don't believe I am. I don't think I am. But if somebody else thinks I am, if this Michael Hart person thinks I am, then is that why he's stalking me? Is he convinced that there's a pot of gold at the end of some imaginary rainbow? I don't believe I am. Does he believe I am? Somebody needs to ask him, because maybe that's his motive. I don't know. For some reason, he wants very badly for his daughter to be my daughter, and she's not. So why? A reasoning person would want to know, why is it important for him to bootstrap his child, his biological child, to me, unless there's a payoff? Because this is a man that sent Robert Seaver back to New Jersey so they could make $10,000 on a bogus escape story. If they're willing to do all of that for $10,000, why does he want his child to be my child when she's not? What's in it for him? What's the payoff? I don't know. Criminal thinking. But it's not my criminal thinking. I don't know. So I asked the FBI. They have the resources. They have the freedom. They have boots on the ground. I can't find out any of these things. I can ask, and I wrote to the FBI for the Freedom of Information Act for information, because I don't know. People keep telling me crazy things, and I just want an answer. I could sit here and pretend I never heard these things, but that doesn't make them go away, and it doesn't make the predators go away. It doesn't make the stalkers go away. If I can figure out why they're stalking me, maybe I can make them go away. Maybe the FBI can make them go away. I don't know.
So part of the psychological report is Dr. Guyton says that you have fantastical stories. Do you think some of the things that you've just described seem fantastical to you, or do they seem, in your opinion, based on reality?
It seems absolutely crazy, bizarre, fantastical, out of this world, strange, crazy. Absolutely. But it's not my story. It's a story somebody's telling me. Somebody else told me these things, and so I asked the FBI, could you please investigate it? And then people said, well, why'd you write to the FBI? So I explained to them why I wrote to the FBI. It's not my story. It's their story. Now, maybe Michael Hart's the one that sent this story. I don't know. And maybe he did it just so you people go, okay, she's a little bit unwrapped. I'm not unwrapped. I receive information, and I ask the appropriate authorities to please investigate. Freedom of Information says, yep, we have a file. Well, what does it say? We have a file since 1955. That's all we're going to say. Well, what does that mean? That's not my story. That's FOIPA, F-O-I-P-A. That's FBI's story. I wrote to them and said, very specifically, do you have a file on me from 1955? That was my only question. Their answer was, yep. What does it say? Yep, we have a file. What? Fantastical, bizarre, crazy, insane? I'm nobody. I'm just a 65-year-old obese woman sitting in prison for 37 years. I didn't make this up. I'm not over in the FBI. I didn't create a FOIPA file in 1955. I was born in 1955. It's bizarre, but it's not my story. I'm trying to find somebody that can explain the story to me. Because if that file is what got my children hurt, if that file got Cheryl killed, they have a right to know. I have a right to know. My mom has a right to know. So what kind of fool would I be to sit here and go, yeah, it's not true. All I did was ask a question. And now all of a sudden I'm the crazy woman. I'm simply trying to find out why my children were so important that some stranger had to shoot them for no reason. I think my questions are reasonable. I wish the police would ask more questions.
Thank you, Ms. Downs. I want to read one more passage to you. Dr. Guyton writes, Ms. Downs' lack of appreciation for how she affected others, as well as her refusal to accept responsibility for even minor problems, much less her more troubling criminal behavior, suggests a very poor understanding of her own behavior and risk. How do you feel, when I read that to you, how does that make you feel?
She started by saying, so how are you today? I'm fine. Any problems? No, not really. I've been in prison for 37 years. Every single day there's a problem. Every morning there's a problem. I live in a cell with 6 people. We all want to use the sink at the same time. It's a problem. But you don't have to make it a problem. You can make it like, okay, you got to turn at the sink, I have a turn at the sink. If it's annoying, get over it. Those are the kinds of problems she says I don't accept. Everything's just happy, rosy, cheery, happy. I am a happy person. I choose not to focus. I know a girl, every time she gets out of her bed, she's growling because her bunkie makes her annoyed. So move to a bed that doesn't have a bunkie. So I don't choose to be that way. And Dr. Guyton seems to feel that because I don't cling to the negative, that means I want people to believe I live in a rosy world. I live in prison. I live in prison. There's 180 women in this unit from all different walks of life. 900 women on the yard. I have staff that come in every day that they have their own lives. The dog pees in their boots. The wife is pregnant and throwing up. And they come in here and they have their problems, and we all work it out. We all have realized in prison that losing the car keys is not the end of the world. We all realize that cooperating and saying, hey, dude, hey, let me get a towel and help you wipe that up. Just because he's an officer doesn't mean that he doesn't need somebody to have his back too. And just because, we're having a bad day and the officer pulls us aside into the game room and says, hey, what's really going on? So you can either choose to have a really messed up life, or you can choose to see the positive side of things. I wake up in the morning and it's like, you know what, I think I'm going to go to the garden for a little bit today, and I'm going to take so-and-so because she's had a really messed up week. Her dad died, and she's really feeling it, and I think she wants to go punch somebody, so let me go take her out to the yard. That's just life. That's just what happens in here. And she perceives that as, oh, you don't face the real. We face the real every single minute of every single day in here. Every day that I wake up is a day that I could be killed. Some girl that wants to go to ADSEC to be with her girlfriend can hit me in the head with a coffee cup, and I'm dead. I am now high-risk medical. Do you know why I'm high-risk medical? I just turned 65, and we have so much COVID in this prison that I am now high-risk medical. I've never been high-risk medical. That is just a reality. One bug that gets through this, and I could be on a ventilator. Does that make me happy? No. And that's reality. But I don't choose to go, oh God, COVID's here. Oh God, I could die. What is the point in that? What's going to happen is going to happen. And there's no sense in bemoaning the fact that, oh, I'm in prison. It frustrates me and it makes me sad. It doesn't even frustrate me. It makes me sad that she chooses to perceive that as being that I don't live in the real world. I live in the real world. Trust and believe that. And so because of that, she bootstraps everything else to it. Well, if I can't be real about my situation here, then I can't be real about anything else. But I'm real. I suppose I could have gone in and said, you know what? The lieutenant kept me at the gate for an hour and a half, for 45 minutes. 45 minutes I was standing there, Dr. Guy. Now, that's really messed up. You know what? He didn't even let me. He just stood there. He knew I had to go. But what's the point of doing that? What's the point of acting out and being stupid? I didn't act stupid at the gate. When I got here and I told the officer, he goes, hey, you're late. I said, yeah, there's traffic. You know how it goes. That's not minimizing. That's just dealing with the real world. That's like you get caught in a traffic jam. You don't jump out and take a baseball bat and break out the next guy's headlights on his car. You just go, oh, dinner's going to be cold. I don't even have a phone to call my wife. Back in the day, we didn't. But so she gave the impression to me in her report that she thought that because I didn't sit here and whine and complain about being stuck at the gate for 45, she had to wait for me because I was stuck. The lieutenant got busy. It's not his fault. He has things he has to do too. He knew I was there, but he got busy. Well, so maybe she was mad. I don't know. But I don't minimize the problems in here. I cope. We all do.
Ms. Downs, let me ask you this. In your life, do you think you've exhibited a history of criminal behavior?
See, ever since this criminal thinking class, it makes me really look at the nitty-gritty. On the whole, no. But yeah, I picked up an ink pen from work and took it home. That's criminal behavior, according to the class. But it wasn't because I looked around and said, oh, I need this pen. Let me see what I can get. It wasn't like a conscious, I need a pen. I just don't want to go out. Even though I make $20,000 a year, I don't want to go buy one. But that is criminal behavior. It wasn't my pen. It belonged to the post office. So I have picked up a few post office pens. But as far as sitting around and going, you know what, I think I need to go, I need a Rolls Royce, let me go rob a bank. I didn't have that kind of criminal thinking, no.
Okay. And Ms. Downs, I just want to read to you one last passage, and this is sort of Dr. Guyton's conclusion, which is what we were talking about when we began during this discussion about the psychological report. She says, Ms. Downs is at low overall risk for violence to strangers, violence that occurs during interpersonal conflicts, and intimate partner violence. The risk of future violence she does pose stems from her history of extreme violence against others in her care, her narcissistic and antisocial personality features, and the low level of insight she has into her functioning. Do you think those risk factors that she identified are things that are true? And if so, do you think those are things that you need to work on?
I'd say, I'm going to use an analogy. Actually, it's a real world thing. I live in a cell with 5 to 7 other women. There's anywhere from 6 to 8 of us in a cell at any given time. That's very close and very intimate. Like I said, 2 sinks, 8 women, 1 toilet, 1 shower. We're locked down. We don't go anywhere. People can get irritated and annoyed at the very littlest things. Somebody left their shoes. It's a very small space. You literally have, from shoulder to shoulder, that much space in between the bed and the locker. Your shoulder is going to rub on your bunky's towel. That's very annoying to certain people. I'm telling you the living situation because she says that I don't pose a risk to strangers, only to people that I live intimately with. I have lived intimately since 1996, when I came out of ADSEG, with 7 other women in a very small space designed for 4. And my reports that you received, the history shows that there's no violence, there's no predation, there's no anger, there's no DRs, there's no verbal assaults, there's no conflict. So clearly I don't have a problem living around intimates, if that's the word that you want to use. So I don't think that's true. I do think that I would benefit from counseling. I have been in prison for almost 37 years. I see criminals everywhere. Everything. After all the criminal thinking classes, all the different kinds of insightful classes, the classes for insight that I've taken, I am more aware of the criminal mind. I watch Congress, and I see crimes being committed in Congress. The only thing that Nancy Pelosi and what's his name agreed on today was enough money to, and this was on the news this morning, they now have funded the congressional business up until January. That's the only thing that those people can agree on. To me, that's criminal thinking. You are taking taxpayer dollars. So what I'm saying is, I could benefit from counseling when I go home. There's no question about that. Because I don't see the goodness in people only anymore. Before, I only saw the goodness. I stop for a stranger because that's what you do. That's what the Bible says to do. That's what God wants you to do. That's my responsibility. That's my social contract, is to stop for somebody by the side of the road. That's what you do. Now, that will never happen again, because you could be a little 85-year-old woman with a cane beside the road, and my first thought is going to be, what's that con all about? So absolutely I could benefit from counseling when I go home. And I intend to involve myself in counseling when I go home. I would like to find that happy medium where I trust people again, but I don't trust the wrong people again. So, insight? My insight. What she wants me to do is say that I shot my kids. And I didn't. And if I have to stay here until I turn to dust, I think my kids have a right to know that their mom loves them. Yes, I was stupid. Yes, I was foolish. Yes, I lived a very careless life. And I thought that I was putting them first by taking them with me everywhere. And it put them in jeopardy. And that was wrong. That was horrible. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I've been stabbed in prison. I've been shot twice in prison. I've had my ankles cut up by leg irons in prison. And none of that compares. What happened to me, none of that compares to what I did to them. That, and it can never be undone. That's the worst part of it. My children's health will never be restored to what it was. Their histories will never be what it was. They'll never know. Their grandpa died in 2017. They'll never know their grandpa. Those are things, that's a door that is shut that can never be opened for them. I have insight into who I am. I loathe myself. They say the first part of healing is liking yourself again. I don't know that I ever will. I don't think I ever can. But I'm also not going to just denigrate myself just to convince people that I have self-contempt. What do I need to do that for? I don't have to be miserable and treat my roommates bad just to prove to the world that I hate myself. I have a social responsibility to treat the people around me with respect. What I can't do is trust them. And maybe it's just because I am so angry at myself. No, it's more than that. It's from living around criminals for 37 years. Humans have a dark side.
So, Ms. Downs, before I move on, I neglected to ask you one of the questions I had prepared, but I do want to spend a little bit of time asking about your physical health. How are you doing physically?
Well, see, this is where I always say I'm good, but I'm not. I'm 65. We've probably had 25 officers in here that have tested positive for COVID, and that makes me sad for them and their families, but it also puts us in jeopardy. And so on my birthday, August 7th of this year, you'll see that my medical status changed to high risk because I'm 65 and there's a lot of COVID in here. We've got a whole building that's set aside for positive cases and another wing set aside for people that are being tested. So that part of my health, I have arthritis. I'm obese. That's not good. Past that, I guess I'm good. My health is good.
All right, thank you.
There are people... Yeah.
You can finish your thought if you would like.
I was just going to say, there are people that are in a way worse condition. There's people in wheelchairs. There's people with canes. And so when I look at them, I think, I'm good. I'm good. But if you're asking like from a doctor's point of view, yeah, I'm broke down. I'm getting there.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Kress, do you have any questions regarding the psychological report?
I do, thank you. Since we're on the topic of health, I did want to also ask, do you have an assigned mental health caseworker at the institution?
No, I don't.
And are you on any?
Go ahead.
Are you on any medications related to mental health?
No.
And you started to say you've asked for one, but...
I've asked for one because it was the parole board made it clear that they couldn't tell if I'd gone from point A to point B to point Z without a professional telling them. And so I've asked for one, and the psych that saw me said, we discontinued our mental health hospitals here years ago. We are low on resources, low on staff. We cannot waste our resources and staff time on healthy people. There's nothing wrong with you. So that's the closest I've come to getting a psych evaluation. So I've tried.
And in regards to the psychological evaluation, one of the statements in the report states, Ms. Downs' case received intense media attention, and there is suggestion in the records that she has enjoyed the notoriety her case has received. In her dealing with her legal case, Ms. Downs rarely presented with low, sad affect, but instead appeared to relish in the limelight. How do you respond to that statement?
I want to know where in the records it says that. I hate the media. I can't stand the media. I talked to the media when I first went to New Jersey. I was 3,000 miles away from my kids. And I talked to the media 1, 2, 3 times because it was the only way that I could tell my kids I loved them, is on a TV show. None of that ever made it to the TV show. All of that always got edited out. So I haven't talked to the media since then. I have nothing to say to the media. I don't relish the limelight. In prison, when you're in prison, people don't hate me because they think I'm a quote-unquote baby killer. Do you know why they hate me? because I'm famous. So I really don't relish the limelight. This is best thing that ever happened to me in prison was getting old. Now all the youngsters, they're all doing their own thing and all trying to get famous and all trying to go out and gangbang so they can make the world the world news, and they forget about me because I'm just that old lady. I'm just the old lady in the garden. That's all I am anymore. And no, I do not relish the limelight. I have never relished the limelight. The only people who've ever said that is the media. That's why I want to know where it says that in the record. She says it's in the record, but I don't understand where it's in the record. I haven't seen it. So.
My other question regarding the evaluation, there's sort of a consistent theme around narcissism in the evaluation, and sort of a feeling of being self-centered or self-important. How do you respond to that? And do you feel like you recognize some narcissistic traits in yourself?
Two things to be said for that. One, this parole board hearing is about me. So we're talking about me. That isn't me being self-centered. That's me trying to answer questions from my point of view so that you'll understand what's happening to me. Same with the psych evaluation. It was all about me, but not from my point of view. I am complying with your requests to tell you about me. Second of all, in here, I do charity work. I do things for other people. I don't sit around on a fluffy pillow waiting for people to take care of me. My roommates fixed my hair today, not because I'm that important, but because they feel like they're paroling too. So they're excited. They're anxious. They're sitting back there waiting. Not because I'm the center of attention, but because we as a group, as a whole, we are a community. We're a unit. And so we share in each other's joys and each other's failures. So narcissism is all about me. If I was narcissistic, I wouldn't be wearing a mask because it ruins my lipstick. I don't wear lipstick back in the unit. I don't wear makeup back in the unit. I throw my hair up in a nice loose bun and I have hairs poking up everywhere. I'm not worried about trying to attract attention or shine the spotlight on me. I don't. I'm in the garden working covered in dirt behind a juniper, and people don't even know that I'm there until they go, "Oh, criminy, Diane, I didn't even know you were back there." Well, they don't say criminy, but anyway. Yeah, I don't draw attention to myself. I don't put myself in a position of being special. I don't know why she writes that. I really don't know why.
Thank you. Those are my only questions about the evaluation.
Mr. Taylor, do you have any questions?
I do. Ms. Downs, I wanted to follow up on that same subject matter. On page 15 of the psychological evaluation, you told the doctor that you might be open to mental health counseling in the future. And you further told her that you were reluctant to talk to others about their problems, being other inmates. And the reason for that was because, this is according to your conversation with her, you said, because you have your own things to fix. I have so much chaos and brokenness. Can you expound upon that in terms of the details of what chaos and brokenness you see in yourself?
I sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. I've been in prison 37 years. It's like if you move to France. They have a whole different way of doing things. They don't wear deodorant. There's all kinds of things. You would eventually either grow accustomed to their ways or adopt some of their ways in order to get along. There's a lot of things about prison in 37 years that I've adopted. I still don't brew hooch. I still don't use drugs. I still don't use legal drugs so that I can get high. I don't even use an inhaler for the albuterol, which is what the girls use so they can get high. I don't do any of those things. But there are things that I do. Some of it is I keep my hands visible at all times. Because in prison, when your hands are down, the staff want to know what you're doing. And so it makes them edgy. It makes them nervous. They want to know if you're reaching for something, if you're reaching for a weapon. So my hands are always visible. That's not a bad thing, but it's a conditioning. It's a conditioning that might make other people think, why are you always got your hands in the air? Are you trying to draw attention to yourself? No, I'm trying to make my officer here not think I'm reaching for a shank. So that's brokenness to me. Talking about my children, I'm not allowed to talk about my children. When my parents come, it's the only time that we're able to ever talk about Christy and Danny and Cheryl. And we only talk about the happy memories. We only talk about the good things because they don't want to make me cry, and I don't want to make them cry. And so that's a brokenness. Most people can say, hey, you know what my son was doing this last weekend? Well, he was out playing softball, and I'll tell you what, he caught that ball at third base. I can't do that. My son, from what I understand, my son was on the swimming team when he was in college. I can't tell people that. They go, oh, what the hell, you don't have a right to talk about that. It's retribution constantly. So there are things that we were talking earlier about, I think, constantly, before I act, before I say anything, before I do anything, I always think first. And I want to think, but I don't want to have to think about everything. I want to be able to say, hey, here's an example. I had a dream the other day that I was at Mom's house, and I said, Mom, what color do you want to paint the dining room? And Christy came out of the kitchen, and she was carrying a toaster, and she goes, I like mauve. And I glanced over at her, and I said, mauve's nice. And I didn't like, oh my gosh, it's Christy. It's like she had been there, and I was comfortable. I told my mom that on the phone, and it was so liberating just to be able to say something normal. I had a dream about my daughter, and it was awesome, and she was going to help us paint the dining room mauve. I didn't tell anybody that in prison. And if I hadn't been able to call my mom on the phone, I wouldn't have been able to tell my mom that. That is something I would have had just kept inside, and it never would have gone anywhere. And then eventually it would have just gone away. Now that I've told it, it's like always mine forever because I was able to share it. And I've shared it with you. So there are things. That's a brokenness. When I'm at home, am I going to be able to, at the church, if they say, hey, Miss Downs, do you have any kids? You know what I say? No. Because if I say yes, people say, well, how are they doing? Where are they? I don't know. That's a brokenness. Those are things that I know I need counseling for. I need to be able to go into the church and say, yes, I had children. No, I don't have children. They have another mother and another father, and they're happy where they are, and they're good. And I can't do that. I certainly can't do that in here. And I don't see myself doing it out there just the day I get out. I don't see that happening. So yeah, I need counseling. I know I need counseling. Not because you guys say I have to, not because Dr. Guyton says I should, but because I know I need it.
Thank you. I want to ask a question about the mental health, since we are on that subject as well. In the original PSI, after your arrest for the instant crime, it stated that you saw a doctor and you were diagnosed with cyclothymic disorder, which is a disorder that's similar to bipolar disorder, but not as severe. and that you went to counseling for 6 months for that disorder. Do you recall those counseling sessions?
That was Dr. Jameson, yes. And the only reason I stopped is because I was arrested. I went until I was arrested.
Were they helpful while you were going?
Yes, absolutely they were. The reason that she labeled me that is because it was right after Cheryl was gone, right after Christy and Danny were gone, and I was not good. I was here and I was there and I was everywhere in between. I was not functioning well at all. I was happy, I would laugh hysterically, and then I would cry for no reason. And I would laugh until I cried. And if you asked me why, I couldn't have told you why. It's nothing. It's everything. And so being able to talk to her, she goes, well, what does nothing mean? What does everything mean? And so I was finally able, she says, stop. Just stop. Pause. Think what's the first thing that comes to your mind, and then go from there. And so it did help. It did help. Yeah. And she was probably the first one that taught me about just stop. Because when you're rolling, just stop.
And the only reason I kind of asked that question is because, professionals, according to, what's in the documentation, says that this disorder, it really doesn't get better with time, and that continuous counseling is necessary, and that untreated, it could develop into bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. So have you ever felt like you've had issues with that diagnosis that was given to you 37 years ago up to today?
I would say no. And I would encourage you to talk to Dr. Jameson. She told me that the reason that she considered that was because it was situational. It was because of a trauma, because of the death and the children being taken, Christy and Danny being taken, and still trying to function in the real world, delivering mail, and the police showing up at the post office and pulling me off my route to ask me questions, and then coming home, and it was basically just trying to fit everybody else's mold. And for real, getting arrested stopped all that. It just stopped. The police weren't there. The job wasn't there. I had a focus, one focus, which was the trial. And I haven't had the mood swings. I don't laugh hysterically until I cry. I never have since. So I imagine that's something that I would bring up with counseling. I would ask her to communicate with Dr. Jameson and find out from Dr. Jameson, get her files, and find out exactly what that meant and why. And maybe that is something. Maybe that's something that still needs to be addressed. I don't know the answer to that.
I want to kind of talk about some of your mental thoughts that you have around death. And this is discussed in the psychological evaluation. You had mentioned that during your lifetime, you've had, let's say, pets die. You've had relatives die. You've had other tragedies in your life. It seemed from reading the evaluation that you believed that there was always someone responsible for the death of anything that occurred in your life. And it almost seemed like a conspiracy theory that you felt like the person responsible for killing your pets when you were growing up, the person that killed your dad's parents when they were in a car wreck, the person that killed your uncle, by shooting him in the head, could be the same person that tried to kill your kids. Is that a thought process that you believe is feasible?
It is. And I know it's probably not what you want to hear. And I didn't always feel that way. When I was a kid, I didn't have that thought. Not until after Cheryl died. Cheryl was killed. Not until after that. And then I started wondering. And even then, I didn't associate my grandparents' death and Uncle David's death with Cheryl's death until it was actually years later when people started sending me all these letters saying, oh, I know this and I know that, and what about this and what about that? And then I started thinking, again, I'm not that important. Why are people from Ohio and Florida and Washington State and Arizona, why are they all writing to me and saying these same things? These people don't, as far as I know, they don't even know each other. They're all writing and saying these same things about my children, about my grandparents, about my Uncle David, as if somebody wants me to believe that. Okay, that doesn't make it true, but it makes one person want somebody in Florida, Ohio, Arizona, Washington to all write to me from different parts of the country and say the same thing to make me believe that. Just to make me look crazy? You don't have to. Parole board isn't going to have to let me go if they don't want to let me go. You don't have to make me look crazy to keep me here. So why is one person doing all this unless this person has a motive? And is the motive to keep me in prison? Then was the motive to put me in prison? And so by extrapolation, that's why I write to the FBI. They can find out if they care. And if they don't care, what have I lost? What have I lost? I've been in prison 37 years without being dangerous. I'm low risk, according to the psychiatric report, I'm low risk for danger, for violence, for anger, for aggression. So, by asking the FBI for help, look, this is how I see it. Let's say you guys decide to let me go home today. I'm going out there to somebody who is sending me these crazy letters. I'm no longer your control. I'm not living in your custody anymore. I'm not living inside an electric fence anymore. I'm out there where crazy people can now put letters in my mom's mailbox. I'm now living out there where when I go to get gas at the gas station, somebody can slide up next to me and say, hey, did you know? I want to know who this person is for my mom's safety, for my kids' safety, for my brother's safety, for my niece's safety. Right now, whoever's doing this is having a blast, making me look like the crazy person. Maybe that's his only goal, just to make me look crazy. Well, kudos to him. But what if it's not? What if this goes all the way back to 1983? What if this goes all the way back to 1971? So I asked...
The evaluation by Dr. Schulte, did describe you as someone with high intellectual, superiority. I think he said that she has a higher intellectual capacity than 99% of similar aged individuals. And so with that intelligence, you can probably discern between people that are making up stories to get to you.
Yes.
And to make money for themselves versus what's reality.
Yes.
And that's
absolutely.
kind of the dilemma. But let me ask you another question. This is from the evaluation. You, in the 1987 PSI, you were described, or I should say you described your plans to marry Donald LeSueur, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who resided in Texas. And Mr. Lesueur was previously married to Susan Atkins, who was convicted in the Charles Manson family killing of Sharon Tate in 1981. My question to you is, someone with the high intelligence that you have, why would you want to marry someone who was convicted of conspiring with Charles Manson to murder many people? Why would you want to be married to someone like that?
I would not want to be married, and I'm not married to him. The mailroom gets all my mail. They told the PSI reporter that the man was asking me to marry him. He wanted me to sign a movie contract. I said no. John Stevens wanted me to sign a movie contract. I said no. So when John Stevens came to visit me, I wanted to know if they were connected, if Donald Lee Lesueur and John Stevens were connected. And so I said, well, I don't know. I don't think I have a Greenfield connection. Donald wants me to sign a contract, and you want me to sign a contract? He goes, oh, well, then don't let me step on your toes. If you got something worked out with him, go ahead and call him. And I said, well, I can't remember his phone number. I think it's 903-123, I don't remember. And he said 4567. I said, you're his partner. So that's what I was trying to do. I was playing Donald Lee Lesueur to find out, to get proof that they were partners in this. And they were. And then after I got the proof, we're done. I got nothing more to say to you. The mailroom can give you all the letters. They can prove to you, if they haven't thrown them away, they can prove to you I was not serious about marrying him. The counselor, the records clerk actually, was so worried about me, she actually contacted the counselor at CIW for Susan Atkins and had Susan Atkins write me a letter. I received a letter from Susan Atkins. She told me, this man's a con man. I wrote back and said, I know. I've always known. You're right. I have the intelligence to read between the lines. What I don't understand is there's still somebody doing it. I don't know who's doing it. I know it's BS. That's why I said, I don't think I'm King Michael's daughter. That if somebody else is trying to make me appear to be, because somehow it benefits them, I want to know who's doing it. I'm not the only person they're victimizing, I'm sure. Heck, they victimized my parents. They got thousands of dollars from my parents by pretending that Rebecca Babcock is my daughter. She goes, oh, Grandpa, I want to go to college. Can you send me some money? My dad sent her thousands of dollars for tuition. So I dang well do want to know who these people are. Not because I believe them. Not because I believe Donald Lee Lesueur is a wonderful person. Not because I believe that I'm King Michael's daughter. Not because I believe that I'm special. But because they're preying on me, and that means they're preying on other people. There's no way that they just decided I'm the only one. For 10 years, Michael Hart never wrote to me. Who's he been preying on? He's been preying on somebody. He's making his money somehow. That's why I wrote to the FBI. Please help me find these people and stop them. Not just for me, not just for my parents, not just for my children. It's a criminal organization. And yeah, I do want to take them down. Yeah, I do want to find out who they are. If the FBI wants me to give every bit of information that I can think of, all they have to do is show up at this probably visiting room. I will give them everything and then be done with it. But right now, I just save it.
Now, you read the psychological report and the scores that you received on the various tests and checklists that were given to you. There was one checklist called the PCL-R. Mm-hmm. And that particular test the average scores for female prisoners is 19. That's the average. And your score was 21, which puts you in the above average range for adult females in prison. And that score equates to you having a moderate to high level of severely antisocial or psychopathic personality. How did you react to seeing that particular score?
Well, I addressed it in a letter to you, and I could get it out and read it to you, but it's on the record, so if I need to appeal, it's on the record. But it goes back to I can probably do some counseling when I get out, because living in prison for 37 years with criminals has acclimated me to viewing life differently than you would, or, well, my staff here, probably a little bit differently, simply as a matter of survival.
Do you think your continued engagement with, I'll use the word that was used earlier, fantastical stories and these theories, and do you think your continuous engagement in that realm makes people feel uncomfortable with your stability?
Yeah, I believe that's why she thinks that is the reason, and that's why I said it. I wrote about it, and rather than rehash it, I believe that is why she believes that I have psychopathy, because she doesn't believe it. I don't believe it either, but I'm willing to investigate it. So, yes, I believe that that colored her ability to view me as me. And
so if you were paroled, how aggressively would you pursue these various stories?
Zero. I would go to the FBI and say, you've received my letters. This is what I have. This is what else I have. Because there's other things at home. There's other pictures. There's other letters. This is everything that I have. I'm giving it to you in a big box. If you want to find these people, here you go. If you want to call me and there's something I can do to answer your question and fill in the blank, I'm available. If you aren't interested in finding this criminal organization and stopping them, which I think they are, they just arrested 159 people last night, so they do look for criminal organizations. So if you are interested, I'll help you. If you're not interested, that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, there will be a big sign around the house that says, no trespassing, Texas Rangers are on speed dial. And that's it. I'm not going to go looking. Clearly, they got what they wanted. They want me to look crazy. Cool. And I'm not.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have, Ms. Down. Thank you for answering the questions.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lowry?
Hi, yes, I do. I have just a few questions. So first, I want to touch back on something that you just talked about with Board Member Taylor, that you kind of started talking about your worries surrounding your safety on the outside and the fact that you would no longer be inside an electric fence and that anyone could get to you. And what that struck in me was a conversation that you had with Dr. Guyton about a previous parole hearing that you had and your conversation surrounding safety that you had then. And it was with Wheeler, Baker, and Felton. And you asked the board, are you going to send me to a location of the board's choosing, as they've done with other high-profile cases in the past? And you asked the board, please don't do that because, I feared for my parents' safety. I finally said something to the effect, I know you don't believe a stranger shot my children. I know you think I made him up, but I didn't. He's real, and I fear he'll hurt my family again. No one else knows to protect my family because no one believes he's real. And then you write, by that time, Member Baker was in tears. Member Wheeler said, we do believe you, Ms. Downs. We finally get it. You aren't making this up. You've been telling the truth all along. But don't you think you'll put your parents in more danger by going home to them? Won't he follow you there? So then you write, maybe. I sighed. My shoulders sagged, my spirit broken. I squeezed back my tears and replied, maybe. But if you send me someplace safe for me, I fear he'll threaten my parents to force me to present myself to him anyway. Mom could be out shopping. Dad gets a call from one saying Mom's been in a wreck to lure Dad out of the house into a trap. I was stupid once. I was careless and my children were shot by a stranger. I won't ever let that happen to people I love again. So at this point, Member Wheeler, you say, was visibly exhausted. She says, I understand, Ms. Downs. I don't know how we're going to do this, but I promise we won't separate you from your parents. By this time, Member Baker was crying really hard, and Member Wheeler said they needed a recess. So they have a recess, they come back, and you talk about your parole plans, and Member Wheeler says, you need to save your money and prepare for an alternative plan, at which point you talked about the plans that you presented, and then Member Wheeler said, listen to what I'm saying, Ms. Downs. Save your money and prepare for an alternative parole plan. And then it rung bells with you, maybe what was going on. And it reminded you of a hearing with Janice Freeman, a previous hearing. And for you, it sounded like Member Wheeler was telling you not to get depressed because, the parole board was going to release you, but they didn't want to put it on the record. They didn't want the media to know the plans in advance. Like she was kind of telegraphing to you, be ready, be prepared. So all of this kind of recitation goes back to a question I have is, do you have these worries still about safety if you're released for your family, for your children, and maybe even to a lesser extent to members of the parole board? You mentioned you wondered if the parole board had gotten the same threats from the same person. Do you still carry these worries about your safety?
Yes. Yes, I do. I worry about my family. I worry about all of you, except I've given you heads up, and I've given the FBI heads up. I've given Lane County District Attorney heads up, and I don't have control over that. So there's nothing else that I can say more than what I've said. I've asked Mom if she would be willing to go someplace else with me when I parole. She said yes. So past that, that's the most that I can do. If you parole me, then of course I'll have a parole officer, and if somebody wants to get information from somebody in your office, and however they do it, I don't know how they do it, then they can find out where I'm paroled, who my parole officer is, and what county what state I'm in. They can do that, and that would still put us in danger. If you discharged me, then I'm not your problem, and I also don't have a parole officer, and Mom and I can go anywhere that we want to go, and we don't have to worry about anybody finding us about predators. That's why I say I would give the FBI everything that I have and wash my hands of it, because past that, there's nothing I can do. There are so many predatory organizations out there on the dark net. It's not my job to save these people, but it is my social contract to speak when I know something bad is happening. And so I've spoken. And past that, there's nothing I can do except protect my family. So that would be my request. I know I'm not here to make requests, but my request is for a discharge as opposed to parole.
Okay. So as of this moment, right, in this hearing this morning, everyone's safe, at least to my knowledge anyway. Your family, your children, members of the board, Lane County DA, all these people you've warned of danger. Everyone's safe, and everyone has been.
Uh-oh. Everybody's gone.
Oh, please hold on. Like I said, this happens from time to time. Let's give it about a minute.
Okay. He's still there, so apparently it's on their end.
Right.
Imagine that. Hi, Chris. He's still...
Okay, I think we're back online. So, Ms. Lowry, if you can just pick up where we left off before the connection got interrupted.
No problem. So what I was saying was, as of this moment, to my knowledge, everyone's safe. Everyone that you're worried about is safe, and has been, certainly at least as far back as your last parole hearing goes. So my question is, do you think that you might be a little paranoid about the threat that this unknown person poses to you and others, given the fact that nothing has happened to any of these people that you're worried about?
Yes, I'm paranoid, and I'm thankful that you guys are safe. I would rather be... If I had been more thoughtful and less careless in 1983, none of us would be sitting here doing this right now. My children would be having different lives. Cheryl would probably be married with kids. If I had been more thoughtful and taken life more seriously. Maybe I take life too seriously. Maybe I take threats too seriously. But I've lived with people in prison that will shank you for no reason. No reason that you know. I've lived for 37 years with horrible things that... I know you're the parole board and you think you have seen and heard a lot of terrible stories. But it's a whole lot different to sit in the day room and listen to the stories, to feel the energy of the people that are getting ready to go and a gang of them go beat some girl up because she had a smart mouth. If I had been more serious, even if I had looked foolish, if I had been more serious, none of us would be here doing this right now. And I look crazy, I look silly, I look fantastical, I look whatever. But I look that way because I fear for you. Not for me, I'm in prison. Every single day is the day that I could die in prison. Big whoop. I fear for you, so I send letters to you for you. And if that makes me look crazy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. What if one letter, one threat that I got, I just said, that's crazy. Nobody's going to do that. Come on. These people are powerful. They're important. Nobody's going to hurt them. They must know that the feds have come looking for them. And I don't say something. And like Michael Frankie walks out to his car. What if somebody had said something crazy and saved Michael Frankie's life? I would rather appear fantastical and perhaps prevent something than to sit here and do nothing. That's it. That's my contract with the universe. That's between me and God. And if God thinks that it's okay to keep punishing me, then so be it. So be it.
And in talking about safety and your worries about safety, something you said earlier in the hearing kind of struck me, and you've asked this question, I guess you've posed it maybe to the universe, like you've said, why were my children so important that someone had to shoot them? So, obviously, one of your children was killed, and and two were seriously wounded but lived. So, and there have been, to my knowledge, no further attempts on those children. So I guess you're worried about them, you're concerned about them. Do you not think your children have been well taken care of and are currently safe? Do you still worry for their safety?
I think they're well
given
taken
the person
care of.
that's out there.
Yeah. I think they're well taken care of. Do I think they're safe? I want to believe they're safe. I hope they're safe. I think I will always fear for their safety because I don't know what happened. I don't know why it happened. And so I will always, I don't know why my grandparents were killed. I don't know why my Uncle David was killed. So there will always be a part of me that fears for them. I think the only way, I don't know. I don't know who's living next door to them. I fear for them. Going back to counseling, I could probably do with some counseling. Is it an unwarranted fear? Already they've been shot. I'm sure that Fred and Joanne Hughie fear for them. I think they worry about them. I think Christy probably worries about her children. And this goes back to what? I'm not supposed to worry about my children because, what, I'm Diane Downs? Same thing as on the prison yard. I'm not allowed to worry about them. I'm not allowed to talk about them. I'm not supposed to cry about them. That's what it feels like. Yes, I will always worry about them.
Okay. And I just have one last question. So you are an individual who, as far back as these records go that we can read, you have been surrounded by drama and perceived intrigue, from mysteries surrounding your birth to the FBI files on you to the attack on your children to Michael Hart, who in your words, has been stalking you nonstop since 1987, to receiving mysterious mail from a man in Wales, leading you to question the attacks within your own family. Again, just like we talked about, to your perceived threat of harm to previous pro board members and family members. It goes on and on. And so my question is, why do you think you're surrounded by all of this? What is it about your personality, do you think, that attracts all of these threads of mystery and drama?
I don't know. That's why I asked the FBI. That's why I wrote to FOIPA, the Freedom of Information Act. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Ms. Downs, we've covered a lot of ground on the psychological evaluation, and most of the questions that I had have been asked already by the other panel members. But I have one question for you, and it kind of goes to kind of my inability to kind of connect the things that you've connected. And I've read every letter that you submitted for the packet. I read your response to the psychological evaluation, and as we've been discussing, there's a lot of names, there's a lot of dates, there's a lot of people that you've associated them with other people, and you've made these connections. But it's confusing to me sometimes in trying to understand how you got to making those connections. So I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to kind of read to it from your letter. And this example I'm just using in order to kind of, then I want to ask you about it because I just want to try and understand kind of how you've reached the conclusion you reached, because I think it would help me try to put some of your pieces together. So you wrote the FBI, and this is in your letter that you say your request, this is what it reads. I'm going to read it, quote it directly as written. My request was narrow in scope and to the point. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover file, 1955 birth certificate and footprint of Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson, 1964 encyclopedia entry. That's it. That's all I asked, and the FBI's response was the identified potential responsive information to my request. Responsive to my request says they found a 1955 file with my name and FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's name on it. In the paragraph before this, you wrote a quote, and I think this is what they sent you. This says, quote, "The FBI's FOIPA program has identified potential responsive information to your request and awaits assignment to a government information specialist, GIS, for further processing." So when I read that, that does not say we have found the file that you are referencing. It's actually a pretty, to me it sounds like a very vague response that doesn't really say we have exactly what you asked for. It's more like we have found this potential responsive information. So how did you connect in your brain that that's proof that they have exactly what you thought they had? Are you following me?
I do. If I was an analyst and I received a letter that says, I would like to know if there is a 1955 file on Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson, and that's all I got, and I looked through the files and there was nothing there, I would say 404, file not found. So for them to say we have potential information means they got something. And all I asked about was 1955 newborn baby. That's it. That's all I asked about. And they said we have potential information. So it reasons with me that they found a file from 1955 with my name on it. I don't know what that file says. I'm not extending, not saying that this means that I was Joseph Bonanno's love child. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying they seem to have found a file with my name on it in 1955. And I want to know why. Because if there is a file, 1955, with my name on it, and these crazy people have that file, and they know more about it than I do, what are they using? Why do I matter? Why do I matter? I clearly don't matter. I was just born, so clearly my parents are the ones that matter. So who are my parents? Why do I even matter to these people? I'm nobody. I was a mail carrier. I was a mom. I was a divorcee. I was nobody. And for 37 years, they have preyed on me. For what, $10,000? I don't think so. That doesn't even make sense.
Well, I guess here's my question back, because, again, I'm just trying to see if I can understand kind of the way you connect information, because again, that response to me is very vague. So to me, that could be here's a vague response because we do have some information on you from some period of time, but we're going to have someone look at it to see if it can be released, which to me could also be information from your murder, could be information from your escape. You might have an FBI file out there, but it could be for completely unrelated reasons to 1955 and J. Edgar Hoover. So to me, like that's a very vague statement. I mean, do you think that it's? I guess that's my point. Do you see that there's other things that could be?
I did consider that, and that's why when I made the request, I was very specific about 1955 Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson. That's it. And J. Edgar Hoover. Very specific. Now, if I misunderstood and they're talking about my escape, my conviction, my SID number 6546106, then maybe that's it. But then why does it take them 2 years and they still don't have an answer? I mean, they still haven't assigned an agent in 2 years? I sent that request in 2016, and in 2018, and in 2020, they still haven't assigned an agent to even look at it? And if you did, then clearly you know I don't know. Why wouldn't you want to talk about it? Oh yeah, we know who you are. You're Elizabeth Diane Downs. You didn't trick us by using the name Frederickson. Something, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my fear I'll take you guys out of the fear factor, but maybe my fear for my family has heightened my sense of awareness and my willingness to examine every piece of evidence. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe there's nothing there. But why not just tell me? Either there's nothing there, or yes, we have a file on a murder case and escape, and been pretty quiet since then. Why not just say that? How many agents does it take? 2 years to say that?
Well, I of course don't have an answer for you on that. I just wanted to ask the question if you had thought about the myriad of different possibilities. So, thank you. I don't have any other questions on the psychological report. Chair Hsu?
Thank you. Ms. Downs, we will proceed to talk about any potential parole plans that you might have going into the future. But before we do that, and before we let the other participants make a statement, let's take one more break. Once again, it'll be a 10-minute break. We will be convening at 11:48. Thank you, everyone.